By
your co-host, Santy Hernandez.
And on today's show, we're going to be talking about childhood trauma. Now, as a disclaimer, we are in no way doctors or therapists, but we do still feel that it's very important to talk about this subject and understand more about what it is and resources that you can look for and use to help you if you're suffering from this kind of trauma. And personally, for me, this is a very hard topic for me to talk about. Usually, I feel like in Tay Radio, we've gone through so many topics that have been tough for everyone. But personally, for me, this is a topic that's just, it doesn't sit right with me. But it's okay, because like I said before, I think it's important to acknowledge that these traumas exist and that there's people, definitely a lot of people who suffer from this. And we want to respect that, and we want to honor those who are going through these tough times. But before we get into it, here is Santy with the quote of the week.
Thank you, Javier. Like you mentioned, this is a very interesting topic because a lot of people, many people have different types of trauma. I will be talking about the different types of trauma, and sometimes you don't even know that's a trauma, which is really something that I discovered when I was in the internship in PRESENTE with MCM. I learned about the different types of trauma, which have helped me really to understand other people and understand why they are the way they are, and kind of respecting that. And so, but however, I'm gonna share this quote, and Kimberly was supposed to do the show today, and I really loved her quote that she picked out, and I wanted to say hi, Kimberly, we miss you, and
we miss you a lot.
We hope you can come back soon.
We hope to see you next week.
Yes. So the quote that I have is, your trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. And I personally think that you can use this in any other way as well, that there are so many things that happen in life, in school, in your personal relationships, at home, and you don't have control over it. They happen. Unfortunately, some of them are not really good things. They're not really fun things. And you can't change it. We can't snap our fingers and change it. I love that, the Avengers movie, Thanos snaps his fingers, everything changes. Reality is we can't do that.
I wish they could just Thanos snap all my problems, That'd be great.
So many things have happened to us, individually. And however, our responsibility that we do have, basically saying you do have a choice to heal, right? You do have a choice, I think,
to seek out help.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of connects to whatever happens to you. It's not what happens, it's how you react to what happens, right? So that, I take it in that way. The only thing that I kind of was like, with the quote, when it says your trauma. And I've grown up, and I want to ask you too, I've grown up where my parents always, when I say, I have, I have, in Espanol makes more sense, but it's like I'm saying I have my flu, right? And my parents always say, don't own it. Because if you own it, it makes it like it's yours, but it's not, right? If you say it's not yours, you allow yourself to let it go. Right?
Say it in Spanish.
So
how does it go in Spanish?
Mi enfermedad, mi dolor, right? My pain, my sickness. And my mom always programmed my brothers and I to say the sickness, the pain. Because when you say the sickness and the pain, you allow it to tell your body, it's not ours, so let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I was like, interesting with this quote. So it's the same thing. If you say the trauma that I experienced versus my trauma, when you say my trauma, to me, it's saying you're giving the power to own it and to not let it go. But like I said, it is our responsibility. No one else will care enough about us than ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think about the quote?
I think it's a great quote, and I agree with you. I think that also trauma, like your trauma, is not your fault. Like that, to me, makes sense. Like going from what you just said, the trauma is not your fault. it isn't your fault. A lot of the times traumas come unexpectedly. Like you said, life just happens all of a sudden. And there's some things that you don't have control of in life. And it's unfortunate that I mean, there's some things you can control, right, to make your life more successful or more worse. But trauma can come to you in all sorts of ways, like how we're going to be talking about today. And it can affect you, and it can come and hit you like a bus, you know? It's just terrible. But healing is your responsibility. That is very true, because I have met a lot of people who have opened up to me about their traumas, and a lot of them, unfortunately, took place during their childhoods. And it's something that a lot of people tend to seal up and don't really want to bring up, like, ever, because, I mean, that's kind of... It's scary. It's scary to talk about those traumas with people, because it's honestly one of the most vulnerable things that I think as human beings that we kind of keep to ourselves, because it's something that we suffer from, but we just try to hide it away from people because we don't want them to know, or just we don't really just want to bring it up because we're trying to get rid of the trauma. We're trying to forget about it. So why would we want to bring it up? But it's good to just find someone or find help, like we'll be talking about later today, to get the healing that you need, because it's very, very hard to heal from trauma, but it's not impossible.
Ooh, I love
and
that.
That's what I'd like to say, is that it's not impossible. You can always move on, but there's ways to manage it, just with any kind of like with a mental illness, like depression or anxiety or anything like that. Trauma is just something that you have to treat, and you have to respect, like understand that it's in you, it happened, but it's not impossible to get rid of. So yeah, I want to be very hopeful. Yeah, I want to be very hopeful with it. And again, my hearts go out to all the people that have suffered from trauma before. But you know what? We're talking about childhood trauma, but what is childhood trauma?
Good question.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
So, childhood trauma is a traumatic event that poses a threat to a child's life or physical safety. So that's a very important definition there, because trauma doesn't always have to be like mentally. It could also be physically. Like even people suffer, someone has like a head trauma or like trauma to their bones or something, right?
Yeah,
you know, like people suffer from that. Like where there's just constant like pain in their bones or something. Like trauma can literally be about anything. But childhood trauma is just more during your childhood, like your life as a child. And this type of, again, more examples of like childhood trauma could be physical or sexual abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, neglect, racism, discrimination, violent loss of a loved one. I know a lot of people who have suffered trauma from that. Like loss in general can cause trauma to someone, especially at a young age. Like if you see someone get shot or see someone get killed, like in front of your eyes. Because I met people who have firsthand seen something like that. It screws them up, and it leads them to do things that in the future that you wouldn't expect them to do, but it's just because of that trauma. And that's why I don't always blame people for what they do. Like let's say they grow up to do something bad. A lot of them do it because they have a lot of pent-up trauma when they were growing up that they weren't able to, go and get help from.
Yeah, they didn't heal that.
They didn't heal it at all. So
Correct.
They just instead took out the rage. Because also, trauma can make you really angry. Because you're like, dang, like, I wish I could have gone back in time to have stopped that, So it causes people to really, do some not so good decisions. But other things could be like natural disasters, like hurricanes, earthquakes, or fires. So like losing your house in a fire, or like being in a building during an earthquake, or or hurricanes taking over literally like half of your childhood home or something like that. Like it could just be caused from literally so many things. But I want to have Santy talk about like the different types of
so all of the traumas that you mentioned, they all fall technically like in different branches. So there's cultural trauma, which is when people are attacked or something happens to them due to like, this includes racism, right? And it could also mean like natural disasters, like hurricanes and earthquakes, especially here in our area. A trauma that a lot of people can have is due to fires. A lot of people lost homes due to the wildfires that we've been having. So those are like, that's a cultural, right? And it falls into the branch of, racism, right? The Black Lives Matter, and then so many other men and women, the difference of
sexism.
Yeah, all of that. So that's cultural trauma. Now, there's the other one. It's transgenerational, where this is when I'm like, it blows my mind how powerful our energies are. This is when something is passed on from family to family to family. You can have a trauma that's
very
been
true.
from your your ancestors, and you don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And unless someone heals that will keep going. And that to me blows my mind.
Yeah, no, it's super true.
And it could also mean poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm like, what? That's connected? They're like, yeah. Sometimes family members continue in a cycle of being in very, very like poverty, not because they lack the resources, but it's because of it's a chain connected. And then it also works with neglect. What is neglect? When your mom or dad or any other family member neglects to giving you love or rejects you. Saying one way it could be, it's like, you're not my son, or you're not my daughter, I don't love you, types of words like that. And it's really hard. It's like hard to say it even. But those are type of neglects, right? And it could also even be, your parent leaving, right? Or your mom leaving. That's really hard.
Yeah.
That's a part of neglect. So that's transgenerational. And sometimes the reason why parents do that is because they were treated like that. They don't know any other way. And that's why a lot of people tend to be that way, right?
So would it still apply, like, again, I think for a lot of like Latino people growing up, I don't know, I feel like I got disciplined a lot, like getting hit,
Yeah.
with like the la chancla, everyone makes fun of that. Like, oh, here she comes with la chancla and everything. But
transgenerational thing.
I feel like that makes sense, right, in that aspect, because I feel like that's always been passed on for who knows how long. But it's still, it can still cause trauma in people, and people are still scared of it. And still, from physical pain, like it sucks at a young age, but...
Yeah, and even that connects to also physical or sexual abuse. Sometimes the person that causes sexual abuse, or the abuser, my bad. The abuser at most times is because they had a trauma, and it's either they were abused or some type of other trauma, and they continue the cycle. Right? Mm-hmm. They continue the cycle. So that's one of the things that blows my mind, is that we don't even know it, but we have that. Like, it can pass on, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Personal things that happen to you. This could also mean sexual abuse, right? Something that happened to emotional abuse. Maybe, you were in a relationship, or, your parents, you watched them get into, their relationship wasn't working, so you watched your mom and dad
get into fights.
Get into fights. So those are personal things that you see that happen to you. Or it could be something like you said, you watch someone being shot. That's something you witnessed.
Yeah, that's something that's been very common with some of my friends who have come up to me and just kind of like talked to me about their traumas before, is just seeing a loved one die in front of their eyes, or just seeing death in front of them. Like it's that's really intense.
And the personals includes also sexual abuse, like I said, because that happens to you, right? It happens to someone. So those are the three main types of trauma that, from my understanding. Mm-hmm. Again, if you guys know any, please leave it in the comments below so we can add on to it.
Because I'm sure there's so many traumas and there's so many types.
These are just kind of like the main ones, and then you can branch out from there, and there's so many ones that you can list. But yeah, so now I want to move on to, how does childhood trauma affect you? There is it's very different for everyone. There's signs for young children in preschool and in elementary school that they already, saw something or witnessed something or experienced something that causes them to have sometimes, there's separation anxiety, right? For example, if you were neglected as a child, when you grow older, it affects you really, really big.
Yeah.
Meaning that when you're in a relationship and the other, when you break up, it's like for someone, you get anxiety. You are in the motion of, I'm not worthy. I can't live with that person. Yes, you can. But because of what happened to you, it's hard for people to see that.
Very interesting that you bring that up about the relationships, because I remember I took a psychology class at College of Marin back in like my sophomore year of high school for the summer, and one of the things that the teacher talked about was how there's guys who always go out with girls, but they can never make the relationship last. You know, like they keep going through relationship and relationship. So it turns into a thing where like the man starts thinking that like every girl's too much, like too stuck up for him or something, when in reality they're the ones that are the problem. And it's just that, again, I feel like that can be a trauma where they've been through so many failed relationships in their lifetime that it starts affecting like their perception of how they look at themselves, you know.
You know, the youth leadership program in Presente talks a lot about this. Huge thanks to Renee, by the way, who is the instructor for Presente. He talks about how in youth, sometimes, and in general, when you're in a relationship, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but when you see things going not so good, the person breaks up first because they're afraid of being neglected. So they do it first.
Oh.
Even though they have feelings, they break up with the person first because they don't want to feel that feeling of neglect.
Yeah.
And if you were neglected by a mother, you chase a mother or a father. How does that work? So you mentioned how there are a lot of men and women that can date over and over and not have a solid relationship,
right? Because
they're looking for a father or a mother that they never had growing up. Does that make sense? So you can be in a relationship, but instead of really being in a relationship, you're looking for a father. Right, you're looking for someone to take care of you, to nurture you the way your mother or father would. So since you didn't have that, you look for it in relationships.
No, that's actually super duper true. Yeah, because I know a lot of guys who end up going for like older girls or just older ladies in general. Then a lot of them ended up not having great relationships with their mom, or just didn't have great relationships with their dad, or had the absence of a father. I don't know, dating in general and relationships and how it connects to your psychological well-being, there's a really big connection to it.
Yeah.
Because it's literally what you're looking for everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's.
And some people don't even date because they've seen at home the violence, the physical, emotional abuse that they've seen at home. So they're afraid to date or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it has like we're talking about dating here, but it has like in general, it affects all areas of your life. What other things that can happen is you become anxious, fearful, difficult sleeping, especially if you've had, you've seen things, you've experienced things really bad. Difficult sleeping, increase in nightmares, crying or acting, decrease in appetite, moodiness, increase of depression and anger. And then signs for teen. This is where a lot of you might connect. It's withdrawal from social activities, right? So you'd rather not be with anyone. You'd rather be alone because you don't want to be hurt. You don't want to be in the drama of things. You think that being alone is the best way and nobody cares for you. Sometimes really people do care for you, but because of what you've experienced as a child, it prevents you from doing a lot of these things. Academic problems, a lot of the reason why a lot of students don't perform academically good per se is because they've gone through so many things. So the least thing they're worried about is getting an A or a B or in class. They're dealing with internal things, which is one thing that I wish we spoke about in school as well. Because there's a lot of students at school that are going through traumatic things and have experienced things at home, and then we're at school saying you need to get an A, you need to get a B, you need to do, and it's like that's not what I'm worried about. There's something wrong, and I can't even figure it out.
Well,
Go ahead.
No, well, thank you for saying those signs. I think I've also been like very guilty of just withdrawing from a lot of people just based on like, just how I feel and how I grew up was I kind of just like being alone at certain points of my life. Or I don't know, like back in high school, I was really like fighting with other traumas at the time. And whenever like I feel like I was being I felt like I was being a disturbance. I don't know if you ever had that feeling where you feel like you just feel like you don't belong in a certain situation or something, so you just kind of just like quietly leave and just stick to yourself and just kind of, I don't know. I get really toxic. I used to get really toxic about it because I would just like not text anyone, or if anyone tried to text me, like tell me like, oh, are you okay or something, like I would just not text back because I just wasn't in the mood, I simply just wanted to be by myself. But looking back, I mean, I've grown from that, but like I said, like it's just something that like the traumas you may not think are there will come back to you one way or another if you do not choose to like heal them or like face them head on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first we're going to go into our quick PSA and we'll be right back.
Your community safe from the threat of a new coronavirus. There are steps you can take now to get ready if an outbreak occurs in your community. Make a household plan. Learn how to prepare and take quick action if someone gets sick. Older adults and people with chronic medical conditions are at greater risk. Take extra steps to protect them. Think about what you will do if there are changes to your work schedule. Remember to always practice good, healthy habits such as frequently washing hands with soap and water, staying home when sick, and covering coughs and sneezes. For more information, visit cdc.gov.
All right, well, welcome back. I know that right now in Marin County, there's actually been a mask mandate lift. So I think certain businesses can actually allow you to go in without a mask. But honestly, I haven't really been seeing a lot of people walk in without a mask. So, I mean, I'd say just personally, I'm still keeping my mask on in areas where I know that I don't know if people are vaccinated or not. But definitely just still keep yourself safe and well clean because, yeah, I mean, COVID's still a thing. So, anyways, I wanted to acknowledge in our chat here on Facebook to Librado. Thank you so much for watching, Librado. I agree with you that definitely a lot of trauma can lead to the use of substance abuse.
Oh.
That's a big connection right there.
Big one.
Yeah, it's a really big one. And also, like sexually too, I want to acknowledge that too, that if someone's sexually abused at a young age, it can really hurt the way they look at sexuality in general when they grow up. They're not going to grow up feeling comfortable learning about sex or learning about any of that because it's that type of trauma can really, really screw up the way you look at your body. It makes you really insecure too, from what I've seen from other people that I've heard have been victims of this. But thank you for sharing that, Librado. I wanted to go and start talking about like what are some signs that people show that they might have gone through some sort of childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So some signs of childhood trauma that I've kind of seen in some of my friends who have suffered from it is hypervigilance, which could also in a way to me hypervigilance could be kind of like anxiety in a way, but hypervigilance is like really, really extreme where like you're always like very, very aware or you're just kind of really scared to like go out to places just because you feel like you're always being watched or that someone's always like around you in your surroundings to hurt you. And a lot of that comes from childhood, like if someone hurt you at a young age or if you got kidnapped at a young age, that can really affect you because now as you're growing up, you feel like you're constantly being like watched or that someone's going to hurt you or do something,
Yeah, adding on to that one, it reminds me of if you guys watch war movies, the post-war movies, how some small noises or like a boom.
Yeah, like PTSD.
They freak out.
Having PTSD.
Yeah, that and also connecting it to, I've seen this a lot in families, when you've been physically hurt a lot at home, that when you hear the door open, it's like, oh, mom's here or dad's here, get up and do something.
Yeah.
Because you have that fear. Just wanted to mention that, but keep going.
I don't know, for me, it's always been like hearing keys wrinkle or something. Like I feel like, oh
Okay.
no, my parents are coming in or something. Like that. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just, again, it triggers something in my brain.
And
where
I think especially for like people who've experienced that growing up, it's like, you know, you're get up, go do something.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, so I think that's also kind of a connection with that. But keep going.
Yeah, and another one I'd like to say is difficulty with relationships. So I was talking about relationships, but
Yeah.
it's true. There's a lot of people who just can't stick with a relationship because either they just start like losing basically sight of how they look at themselves, or just lose connection of who they are, but also trust issues. Just having a tough time trusting others.
Oh,
and, and being with them because of whatever trauma you face.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you might be I saw this on one day, and it I was like, hey, interesting. It said that a lot of people like date someone, doesn't work out, they get hurt, and they ask themselves, well, I'm valuable, you know, I'm a good person, I don't know what this is happening. You meet another person, same thing happens. And one of the video mentioned that unless you heal what's going on, you're gonna meet the same person just with different faces. That to me struck really hard, because I was like, whoa, you know. So difficult relationships also might mean that there's nothing there. It's not that you're a bad person or anything. It's just there's something that you haven't healed, so you keep not finding true love.
True love, yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that up. Other things are, like I mentioned earlier in the show, is physical health problems. Like physically, like if you suffer trauma, like again, any part of your body that can stick there in your body, like your body still feels it. Because your body is always doing work, like every time, you know, you're moving around, your body's doing work. And trauma can stay like in your body. So if you suffer from like, I don't know, like a really bad head trauma, your head can feel a certain way certain times, or it can start hurting or something because of that trauma. But that a lot of that stuff ends up getting healed either through medicine or through physical therapy, things like that. Other things are insomnia. Oh my God, this one's really big. People can like have a really tough time sleeping, you know, or just having to like lay down or even relax for a moment, you know. It can be a lot for some people suffering from trauma. So I want to acknowledge that one as well. And again, just anxiety is also a very common, which makes...
Yeah. And just to add on with everything you've said, I think one thing, you sometimes don't even know that you are the way you are because of something that happened to you when you were a child. I didn't know that. And it's like as you grow up, you hide it. Have you ever seen the movie The Shining?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Have you seen...
it's one of the better horror movies to have come out.
Have you seen the second one?
I actually have not.
No, but there's this scene where the older person tells him that he keeps visioning what the traumatic horror thing that happened to him, and the guy says, put it in a box and lock that box.
Okay, I think I saw the scene for that. Yeah.
The reason why I bring this up is because growing up, that's what we do. Something happens, and instead of seeing what we can learn and what we can take from it so we can move forward, we don't do that. We take it like in our memories. This happens in our head.
Yeah.
And it was a visual representation in the movie, and I was like, whoa. It's a horror movie, but it brought that in my head, and it's like everything that you've experienced, you tend to open a box, put it all in, that memory, everything, you close it and you lock it, and you just throw it away.
So but it's still there. That box is still there.
And in the movie, the second one, it shows how because he locked everything, he went into, like you mentioned, drugs and alcoholism. But it just kind of reminds me, and he didn't even know why that was happening. So a lot of things that happen in life, or the way you are, or you just the way you react to things, you even say it. I don't know. It's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Is it though? You know, there's a lot of things that maybe you haven't opened up and like really taken time and say, I need to heal, so then we can move forward. Just something I wanted to bring up really quickly.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it up. And if you could just explain to me kind of just some sign, like what we can do when we see signs of this kind of trauma from what I've just listed.
I think one thing is we've mentioned this before, and it's having the mind, an open mind, and free of judgment. And here's why.
No, most definitely.
Here's why. Because a lot of the things that, especially when it comes to sexual abuse, a lot of people are afraid to talk about it and come forward with that and really sharing that with someone, because they think it's their fault. Because in society it tends to be, it's because the way you dress, it's the way you acted that caused that person to do that. So that's the fear that happens with someone who's abused. So when you have an open mind and free of judgment, you explain to he or she that he is not responsible, she's not responsible for what happened. That it's not their fault that happened to them. It was something out of their control. But if you're someone who doesn't, has a mind with judgment, you're going to say, it's your fault, right? So just one of the things, and then being patient. Some children, when they lose a father or a family member, or they were neglected love or stuff, they might react in certain ways. And like I said, when I was in Presente, I learned how I need to understand them.
Yeah.
All my life, being honest, I looked down upon people who were in drugs or in alcoholism. I always said, they want to be there. They so want to be there. They can just get out, But then I learned that at times it's because they suffered something growing up.
Yep.
And they couldn't find a way to heal it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, when I see someone in this, coming in the streets or driving...
Someone who's homeless as well.
I always say... And I have a huge connection with God, and I always say, God, please bless them. Give them show them and help them through everything. And I don't say what I used to say before, because I realized that I even have family members currently going through that because of what they experienced, that they're in really deep stuff, and it has caused them to do really horrible things.
Yep.
But not intentionally.
Exactly.
Right? I don't think my family member is like, I'm going to do this to cause you pain. It's the cause of traumatic things and challenges that we face in life.
And no one grows up evil, no one's born evil. No one is born and says, I'm going to kill someone, right? Like, no one has those intentions. It's just, childhood is such a critical role in someone's life. Like, it's so critical on how, like, if you have a really bad childhood, you're going to have a really bad rest of your life. Or it's just going to be really tough if you don't choose to change it.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't find the help that you need or look further for the help, it's going to be tough. And
yeah. I love how we mentioned choice. There is this quote that I found, and it says, trauma creates change you don't choose. Healing is about creating change you do choose. I thought that was so nice.
And thank you for sharing that, Santy. We're going to move on towards talking more about treatments. So we're going to be giving a little just bit more information about, treating these types of traumas. But we're going to play a song by Ismael Rey Lara, Pa Adelante. I think the song's lyrics actually are such a good segue into this, because it talks about moving forward, Pa Adelante. So,
I love that.
Yeah. So shout out to Ismael Rey Lara, and here's the song, and we'll be right back.
This society try to crush my spirit, but my chicano so don't fall. I'm 100 with it. Mi gente dice al 100, puro pa' adelante. Pa' atrás a más, que ese hueco en vivo ya verás. Vamos, vamos, pa' adelante. Vamos, vamos, pa' adelante. Vamos, vamos, pa' adelante. Vamos, vamos, yeah. So who's the victor? You Roman silver, the 30 coins of Judas. I'm Aztec gold, abundance of wealth that will never told. I'm the mind alliance, youngest defiance, a storm of stars, know the science. Duality of the serpent, don't misinterpret. I'm fine wisdom, age in the temple of the serpent. I'm the flaminess of chorus poems, wisdom that hits the soul. Nobility, we slip forth, it's hard to fight every day. We born to prove victory, not to feign decay. I'm Purepecha Princess Erendine on her horse ready for war. We don't die, we regenerate. Victory our fate. On a cool breeze, I move with ease. My intellect stays strapped. I embrace my heritage. The brown, white, and the black. I got my mind on my studies and my studies on my mind. Ready to hit back with facts. Blackjack. So what's the meaning? Historical victory from the beginning.
All right. Well, again, that was Adelante by Esmeralda Lara. And honestly, one of the lines that just stuck out for me from that song, even though I've heard it so many times, is we don't die, we rejuvenate. I think that's a really great line, just talking about trauma in general, because the way I interpret it is like we don't, you suffer from trauma, but there's always time to heal yourself. Like that's just the theme. That's the theme that I want to really like make clear to everyone, is that you can always heal from these things. It's hard, and maybe not completely heal, but there's ways to make it better for you.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Wilbur. Thank you for being here with us and just being here with us while discussing this tough topic for us. Because again, like I said, this topic isn't. It's hard for me to talk about, but I'm glad that we're talking about it and that we're here. But anyways, so now that we've gotten a little bit more familiar with what childhood trauma is and some of the ways that it can affect you, I wanted to bring it back to Santy here to talk about a little bit more about what she learned in PRESENTE regarding trauma. And if for those who don't know, PRESENTE is a youth empowerment program that's offered by the Multicultural Center of Marin. If you are a youth in high school and are looking for a great program to teach you not just about like your roots, I mean, you could probably do a better job of explaining because you were actually in it, but it's a great program. Rene Miranda is the teacher. He's an amazing lecturer. And take it away, Santy.
Yeah, I loved this internship that I took with Rene, and one of the things that he talked about is you have to heal your demons. And that's kind of like, what are you talking about? And he mentioned how your demons, or the demons that you have, are the challenges and traumas you faced in life. And because of them, if you don't solve them, if you don't work them out, your shadows will project to others as well. And that's so important. There's a lot of things I can really go in depth with this, and we can be here for hours.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, treatments. When we talk about treatments, I think for me, it means reconnecting and grounding your roots. So that means having, la valentía to go back and really rethink or relive those moments to really find out what's happening, right? Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense, yeah.
So that's what we learned in PRESENTE, because you can't be a leader unless you really know where your roots are, if you have solid roots. And I mentioned this before, it's like a tree. There's different types of tree. There are trees that their roots are very solid, so when a storm comes, it doesn't break them, right? There are trees that their roots are not, they're just there, so when a storm comes, it blows them away.
Yeah.
So the point of healing, it means that you can ground yourself so that when further challenges come along, it won't take you down. Because what leads to traumas and stuff, it can lead to hurting yourself. Mm-hmm. And by hurting yourself, I mean, the saddest thing that can happen is suicide. And a lot of people commit suicide because of traumas, neglect, etc., etc.
And just wanted to bring up, you mentioned how it can affect others around you as well with trauma. I think it's important to understand that your trauma can really affect, like you said, transgenerational, right?
Yeah.
This trauma that's caused when it happened to your ancestors, and now your present day, it's still happening to you. But if you keep hiding this trauma away, other people will notice that you're doing certain things that are either, like you said, could be bad, or could lead to you doing something harmful to yourself, and it can really affect the other mental state of other people and cause trauma to them seeing you do these things.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that crazy? Like, thinking about it that way, where your trauma is actually can lead to other people actually having trauma from seeing you do something like that. Like,
that energy is so powerful. So when I mean rerouting or going back to your roots, that to me is a closure. There's 6 steps that we learned to healing and, dealing with your demons. One of it is closure. So going back and rerouting. The second one is learning. What you can go back, right? You're rerouting, but what are you taking with you? Right? What is it that happened? The things that you need to learn, the bad things, right? Seeing the bad thing and acknowledging the bad thing, not ignoring it, right? There's a very fine difference between putting it in a box versus saying, okay, this happened. What am I taking? What is it that I need, right? The third is justice, right? It is an important compound to healing because the person is achieving justice from how they suffered through trauma. Very key thing. The fourth is control. You need to have balance inside of you so you don't fall out in bad side. That's the fifth one is forgiveness. Oof. This is an interesting one. Once you've received justice from trauma, it has been known that it is therapeutic for people to move forward with forgiveness. This is not something that is done for the benefit of perpetrated. This is more for the victim to benefit from showing them that they can let go of their fear. So what trauma causes is fear. Fear.
Mm-hmm.
And fear doesn't let you live your life. That's it.
No.
It doesn't let you live your life.
You can't live your life in fear.
Yes.
You just can't.
It stops you from doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's so many dreamers that have greatness. They are greatness. And it hurts to see how they can't do that. And it knowing that it's not their fault.
And something that I wanted to connect to that is that there's a lot of actors out there who have done interviews where they talked about how they got to where they are now, like as like AAA actors. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys know Winona Ryder. She was in Stranger Things. She did a bunch of movies.
I don't know.
She's an actress, but I remember one of her. I was watching one of her interviews back when she was just barely starting to get big again. She mentioned how when she was like trying to pursue her dream of being an actress, people kept telling her that she wasn't pretty enough. Or that she wasn't good enough to be an actress, and that she had no real position in Hollywood. Like she was not destined to be good. Like she was just kept constantly being like put down by all these big Hollywood executives. But that didn't stop her from pursuing her dreams, because there's people out there that will see the potential in you, and that will see that there is potential in you. You just have to keep working hard and looking for it. Like, there's always going to be someone there who's going to acknowledge you for your talents,
Yeah.
And, I just think I just wanted to connect that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And the last one that you see a lot of activism, for example, the Me Too movement. There's so many other activism things that have happened with racism and everything. Part of why a lot of people do that is because they've healed and they want to be able to help others. And you can do that too. So for anyone, we have for resources, you can call 866-488-7386 or text START for 678-2678-678 and to talk about interventional and suicide prevention for all types of youth. It doesn't matter your race, your sex, how old you are. It's for everybody. And if you guys want to know more about, childhood traumas and all of that, there is the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. It's the nctsn.org. You can go and do your research and see what you can do, not only for you, but for your family members or friends. I mean, you might have that has told you about something that happened to them, and what you can do. So those are my resources that I found. Javier, do you have anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Brandy Children's Center, which is located here in San Rafael. It's located at 2 Janet Brandy Way. They have a child abuse treatment program, also known as CHAT, where it offers both short-term and long-term services free of charge for eligible families. That provides assessment of families' needs, individual, family, and group therapy, parent support and education, and also information and referrals. So they're a great place to go and just get help, or just kind of talk to them to see if their services can apply to you. And you can visit their website at www.brandycenter.org, or you can call them at 415-499-3750. It's also very important to, again, acknowledge the hotlines, the suicide hotlines that are out there, in case you know of anyone who is suffering from these types of thoughts. And the suicide hotline, the U.S. suicide hotline, is 1-800-273-8255. These are just numbers. Honestly, I have these numbers saved on my phone, just as like in case of I see anything. Like I just keep them saved, just like 911. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of just close the show out with just saying that this has been. I've actually been really. Like I said before at the beginning of the show, like this isn't a very easy topic for me to talk about. But as we've been moving forward and just learning more about what childhood trauma really is, and kind of going over the different effects that it can have on people, I feel a little better acknowledging it and kind of understanding it. And I feel like from my past traumas and kind of learning more about them, it's nice to hear that it's not just like a bad thing, like that I'm to blame, or that that this trauma is my fault. That it's actually common. Like a lot of these problems that we've been listing, all these signs, like a lot of it comes from us acknowledging that these exist. This is what we've seen in people. This is what professionals have seen be common issues in trauma, or what have caused trauma. But the reality is, it's a long list, of what trauma really is. And I just want to just acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to say that it is something that happens to everybody. It doesn't have a specific gender that it goes to or anything. It happens to everybody. And I think the sad thing is that a lot of people pass away not fixing those. And I think that's very sad. Personally, I think for me, one of the biggest things that I want to share, one of the things that I feel like it's hard for me is losing people. Mm-hmm. Because over the past, over the past few years, in my family, we've just been people have been passing away. And for me, it's been hard for me to really to like that's what scares me, right? Even my mom, like we talk about it with my grandma. We're like, I don't want you to talk about her getting older because like I'm scared.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because of everything that we've experienced, we've had really big losses in my family that it's so still to this day that I just can't picture having those people not here. Like I think they're still here. And
so I think for this year especially, or these past 2 years with COVID and everything, affecting so many families and killing so many lives, it has led to a lot of trauma in people. And I feel like a lot of people are now looking more for therapy or for help, because it's just and then another thing that I personally went through something like this where I had this trauma that was just stuck in me, right? Mm-hmm. That I didn't want to acknowledge. But as soon as something bad happened, like another trauma happened, it kind of did like a domino effect for me, where it brought back all of my other traumas again.
Oh, whoa.
You know what I mean? For me, it's like as soon as like I saw someone else die, or I saw someone or heard of someone dying again, like it really hurt me. And then I was like, and then it unlocked that box. That box that I threw away, and it just came back. And then I was like, well, crap! Now I remember all this again, and it really bums you out, but it's true, and it's good to also be very honest with yourself about the trauma that you face, because I think for a lot of time, at least for me, when I was suffering through some trauma, like I would kind of make the narrative kind of seem not as bad as it really was, or kind of like to myself laugh it off and be like, oh, that happened, but it's in the past. Like it wasn't that bad, but it's because you're just hiding it away. You're not fully facing it head on. You just want to make it a smaller thing.
Yeah, and going back to the quote where it says it's your responsibility to heal, I think that kind of connects with what you said, that you make a narrative in your head saying, oh, that's okay. Or, the people have it worse than me, But at the end of the day, it plays a huge role with how you are with yourself and how you are with other people. Because how you are with yourself portrays how you are with other people.
And how you're going to be growing up and raising your kids in the future.
Oh, yeah.
If you choose to have kids.
So...
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, our topic today is childhood trauma. And if you are a sister, an older sister, or an older brother, or, you have nephews or nieces, I think it's always, taking care of you. Kids are so important in their early youth, throughout everything, but their early years from 0 to 7 years old, I think there's a statistic on this that it shows really how they will grow up being, older. So if a child grows up in a very abusive home, like that sets their roots for what's coming. And it's really sad to really say it that way. Yeah, I worked in a foster home, and I got to hear stories, and whoa, like, it affects children in such a big way. And so to all of you who have, little ones around you, show love and
always check in with them. I know that it's really hard to, like, I know for kids, especially growing up, they might have already gone through some trauma, but they don't know yet, right? Mm-hmm. Or they don't know that what's ever happening to them is trauma or will turn into trauma later on. You know what I mean?
Something that you brought up is a lot of adulthoods. I've listened to this, and they're like, oh, in Spanish, pues porque es un niño, no siente nada, no entiende nada.
No.
Right? So we transition that into English. He's a kid, like he doesn't understand or doesn't feel or understand anything. They do. Oh my God, I've seen that with my little brother. He's 7 years old, and my little brother is amazing. He's super smart, and with him, I've been seeing so many things, and he teaches a lot of things to me. We had a very, very close friend of ours pass away, and then we had our grandparents pass away, and I thought he didn't, because everybody says, oh, he didn't understand. He felt everything. My little brother would cry, and even today occasionally tells me, I miss this person. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes he brings things up during the day, and I'm like, whoa, you've carried that throughout? And so kids are, they feel everything we feel too. They might not have like the understanding we have, but they do understand what's going on.
Yeah, because their brains are like a sponge, they're absorbing everything. So
that's the danger of a child, growing up with traumas. They absorb all of that, right? They're a sponge. Thank you for saying that. They're a sponge.
That's what they are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And I'm not saying not to like trust your loved ones or to trust your close ones, but it's always, to me personally, it's always been just kind of scary to leave any kind of kid alone with people that you do trust. But I mean this is just me, but like for me, like if I were to leave like my son or my daughter like with someone that I trust, and then I hear like years later that they did something to them. Like, do you realize how screwed up that makes me feel, like, in the future? Or, like, how screwed up that would make me feel to understand that I trusted this person and they did that? And and I've heard of so many stories of people going through that type of trauma where they learn that their child had this happen to them because they left them with this person. So, I mean, I'm not saying obviously that every person that you're close to is bad or anything, but I just want to acknowledge it, that it's a thing that happens, and we have to understand that it happens. So that's why always just check in with your child, like literally always, because I mean, like you said, kids aren't dumb. They're not gonna tell you, like, just tell them exactly, like, what'd you guys do today? Like, what was it? Like, what is this? And then if something seems off, or you see that they do something, because kids may not be good at like showing their emotions too well, or like about certain things, but they know. They can trust you, they're your kids. So it's just good to always check in with your child or anyone who's who's like at a very vulnerable age. Just check up on how they're doing and just monitor their behavior and make sure that there's not any weird changes in behavior that, I don't know, might have been caused by something.
Yeah, the world is crazy. It's not, it has a lot of things that one... Like you mentioned this before the show. It's like, how, why? Really, it's so hard. But we don't have control over it, right? What we do have control is checking up on people, checking in with ourselves. Please check in with yourself, see where you are, and like the whole point of the show is that we want this to be something that you can have a conversation over, not to blame anyone, but for your healing. Mm-hmm. Because when you heal, and we repeat it over and over in the show, but it's because we really believe it, that when you heal, you will perform so much better in whatever you're doing. And that also means enjoying life. You will enjoy life more. You will love life more. You will love yourself so much more. But none of that can happen unless we really start having conversations like this and stop letting fear control our lives.
And making, like, again, reiterating the information that we talked about throughout the show, it's good to just acknowledge that trauma exists. These are the signs. These are what's common with people with trauma. It makes, like I just said before, it made me feel a lot more comfortable talking about this topic. Like beforehand, when we didn't list any of the signs or go over anything, I felt pretty like, But like now, I feel a lot more comfortable because it makes me understand more about what trauma really is. And it makes me feel, hopeful and better that I can acknowledge these and that these traumas, again, like, thank you, Annalie, for mentioning this.
Yes, thank you, Annalie.
That you don't, that it feels like when you're drowning 5 feet below water, and another person is drowning like 10 feet below water, both of you still need help, right? So don't make your trauma any less by comparing yourself to others, because both of you...
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of it and looking at it, because... Yeah, you're still drowning. Like it's
it could be 1 feet, you're still drowning. I love that.
But thank you for acknowledging that, Annalie, and like I said, if you are someone who's actually facing trauma and are just have taken, been sealing it up inside of you, I highly recommend at least going to seek help and looking for, and just if you trust someone, you can let them know. It's good to release whatever you have pent up inside of you, I feel. Personally for me, I've discussed my trauma with some of my closer friends, and it really helped me out in just acknowledging, okay, people don't think I'm crazy. People don't think that I'm actually like this, because they now understand that I went through this trauma, and now they're like, okay, we understand why you're acting like this, or we understand why you've been doing this or something. Just whatever. It's just good to let it out and just acknowledge or find help, because again, going back to the quote, you're not going to heal. Trauma isn't going to just heal if you just keep it inside the whole time. You have to go out of your way to make yourself heal. So,
yeah, for my part, to finish off, thank you so much for all of you who's watching. Like I said, doesn't mean that Javier and I are perfect. We don't have anything going on in our lives. Yeah, we do. And there's still more to come. There are more challenges. But like I said, there is hope. There is, we are greatness. We are loved. And thank you so much. And all I can say is, I love this quote, and it's, "The light in me honors and sees the light in you." But yeah, thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you, Santy. That's it for now for this show. I know it was a lot, but thank you all for staying with us and for supporting us. And we'll get back to you guys next week for another show. But thank you all for the support, and we'll see you all next week.